Hey, happy new year. Hope everyone's been staying safe and happy. So it's been a very hectic first week of January for me, hence why I'm only filming this now. But these lessons are timeless and will help make your lives better no matter what year it is. I hope you'll stay with me until the end so you don't miss anything that could be valuable to you. First lesson I have here, these are in no particular order, is that there's always more to learn. There is an endless pool of knowledge out there that's exciting, and no matter how good you think you already are at writing, math, communicating, you can always be better. And I learned this especially through my new job that I started last year, to be able to kind of see things from another perspective when serving a client. There's a lot to be done there, and with the amount that each of us can continue to grow and always be better, it's done by having more reps, trying different ways and new things. Despite our current accomplishments, there are always new accomplishments to be made, new positions where you're the baby of the group again, and new challenges to overcome. By being excited about it, it's easier to have that growth mindset. Second thing that relates to how there's always more to learn, many things just require more experience or time. This relates to consulting, and last year was the first time that I really decided I wanted to take this channel further and do it as something to help more people, but it wasn't as easy as I thought. After watching many people do it on YouTube themselves, it wasn't something I could just try and replicate right away. Even when creating this list of lessons, I tried to think really hard to compile this list for over a month, but then at some point I was just thinking that I need to let go of perfectionism and just roll with it and just create that video. It's not about having a perfect product on the first try and spending a lot of time on that, especially in something that could flop, and then it's more so just continuing and having practice, because practice makes perfect. We can't go straight to 100, and we can't get to 100 without first starting at 0 or 1. The third thing is to let go of hindsight bias. I tend to do this a lot because I'm a nostalgic person, especially looking at how good things were in elementary school when you had recess. But just like back then, each age has its own set of worries. Just like when we see other people's lives or other possibilities that we always think what we don't have might be better. So last year, when starting my job, I really started to miss the college experience, even though I hadn't really had it since 2022. But I had to let go of that notion and keep hanging on to having my friends around me all the time and the excitement of college events in order to really take in my new life, which is also very exciting. And the present is the best gift. The present is what's most important. We must be willing to let go of the life we planned so as to have the life that is waiting for us. The fourth thing is that emotions are difficult to control if you procrastinate. I tried to not react so outwardly, like I don't yell or don't do any of those things. But then sometimes there are instances when I just kept it in and I tried to endure it to see if it'll pass. But then the longer I did that, the more difficult. So I think in this year, a lesson I take away that many people can also benefit from is just to kind of address the current emotions, like to accept its presence and then find a way to address it then. And if it's a conflict with someone or something like that, then it could be resolved in a much easier way than you might have thought. Next is that effort does not equate to success, but parentheses, we will still get value from it. So an example is that in 2021, even though I got accepted into 2 top MBA programs, I also got rejected from 2 other ones. And in those 2 other ones, I'd say I put in more effort than the other 2, even though I put forth my best effort in all of them. But it's kind of different because the other 2 were more competitive. But even though I tried so hard and basically checked all the boxes of what people say you should do to prepare yourself well and to look good, even though I did that, that effort led me to believe that my success was more probable, which to an extent it definitely is. That confidence is good, but it's important to understand that it doesn't really guarantee your success in that particular area because there are many factors out of our control. The idea is to still appreciate and gain value from those efforts, even if the end result was not what we expected. It's to really relish an effort and be proud of that, and to know that you've tried instead of just hinging on the award or acceptance. Sorry. Hope it's not, that thing that's floating around right now. Another thing I learned is that people are not perfect together, but they can be perfect. People naturally have very diverse backgrounds and experiences, so inevitably, there are differences, but that's the fun of meeting new people and getting to know someone. No matter how compatible you think you may be, you are compatible and perfect in the sense that you can compromise and fit to each other's differences. And that's the perfect rather than other people's usual notion of a relationship, whether it's friendship or romantic, for that to be absolutely picture perfect in every sense and for there to be agreement in everything and interests in all the same things. So by not only tolerating but appreciating someone's differences, because life would be boring if you're just stuck with someone like you, identical, right? Then you're gonna have a much better time in your social interactions and relationships. Last year, I graduated from Caltech. Even though I don't feel like I did, I'm still stuck in 2020. And I learned that it's about the journey, not the destination. At the beginning of Caltech, even before I started going there actually, I was so excited about the idea of just finally graduating and accomplishing so much and standing there with the diploma and taking pictures with my friends and family. But what didn't really come to mind was the fun and the great experiences in between those two time points. I thought about the difficulties and therefore was more excited about the end, but I didn't think about relishing in the experience. And I did make the most, I think, of my Caltech experience. Kind of touched upon this in another video, but when I had those graduation ceremonies, two of them, because one was a virtual block party, it didn't feel as exciting or that gratifying as I had expected. And I don't think that was solely a result of the pandemic and the different situations of people being able to celebrate the way they usually did, but it's just relates to the idea of also like when you earn an award or finally get accepted to a job, that's really exciting, but it's even more exciting of the process and the journey you took to get there. And because that's the part where you actually are gaining more in terms of your own skills and developing your character than the end one-time event. Okay, next is business is business. One time, Sean and I forgot our keys to the apartment all the way in another city, 2-hour drive, and so we got a locksmith. And then the locksmith came and was like,
"Oh, this lock is so difficult. This one's impossible to pick, so therefore I'm gonna have to charge you $250 to completely take out the lock and replace it with a new one."
We were standing there like, we could just drive the 2 hours to get the key. And then he was like,
Okay, I'll get it to you for 100 something. Is that fair?
and we're like, okay, fine. It saves us time, right? But then he did all the job and then he was all nice and everything. And we're like, okay, this guy is super nice. Like he did it for us for a deal. And then he just fixed the problem and it seemed like this was a great job. We can get into our apartment and finally shower and do all the other things we want to do. But then later, Sean searched what kind of lock it was. And you might be saying like, oh, you're dumb. You should have just looked this up before. But we were kind of stressed in the moment. And turns out that lock is pickable. Like you can pick that lock. And for a locksmith, that should have been easy. And so that's just the idea that in the real world, there are many nice people, and it's not to say that you should be cynical all the time, but a lot of things people do are for the money. And in a company, for example, if there are layoffs happening, the company is just going to think of each person as a number, a body, and they're probably not going to think back to how hardworking this one person was or how dedicated or kind or friendly this other person was. It's not going to be a factor for their consideration. And so business is business, and we have to remember that at the end of the day, so we don't feel too bad and we're more careful. Next, these are not very parallel in how I wrote them, but the comfort of stability. The past year in 2021, I moved around a ton, whether that was changing apartments in Pasadena, just go to Caltech remotely, and then traveling within SoCal and back home. But it made me really realize and appreciate the comfort of the stability and of home in particular. And we don't really think of this again, like when we are in high school or just living staying home for 18 years, but you do kind of notice it when it's gone. At least I do. And I'm telling this so then if you are still enjoying home, then you appreciate it more to have your parents cook for you and just be stable and have somewhere you can always go back to and where all of your possessions are. Cherish those moments because they're not going to be there forever. Even while I enjoy exploring and doing many other things, Caltech was a source of stability too before the pandemic because everything was consistent and I was really content there. But it's the idea of you not knowing what to appreciate until you don't have it anymore. So like if you have pain in your knee, then you didn't realize to appreciate that you were healthy and your knees didn't hurt before. And so that's why I find these lessons and these kinds of exchanges and learning from people so valuable, so then you can better know what you should appreciate at the time before you have to lose it in order to realize that. Okay, the 10th thing is that everyone has pain and body problems, and kind of similar to what I just touched upon is that we need to appreciate our current state and health and safety when we have it, especially in this time that we're all in, this crazy time, COVID-19, but now it's 2022. Anyway, that's sad. But I had migraines, or I still do have migraines. I had for over 10 years, and each time I get one, I'm just like, wow, it hurts so much, first of all. And then afterwards, I'm just like, wow, I feel reborn again. Like, I appreciate this feeling so much of just feeling normal. In appreciating health, that means maintaining it. And so we need to treasure that and hold on to it by having better nutrition and mental health and physical fitness. Something I'm taking to myself more to 2022 is that mental aspect, and to take a step back and not always go, just enjoy more in the present moment and the current state of my health, because my job is already inherently stressful, so I need to try and counteract that even more than I might have had to for that stressful job. And whatever you're doing, just try to create a balance. And even if you do have pains and aches, to not so much be angry about it or feel unlucky, but know that there are many people who are in worse positions, and everyone has their own body problems even when you don't see it. Trust me, like everyone really does suffer from something, whether small or big, but that's also part of growth and getting stronger. Finally, on a lighter note, I learned to stop being cheap. Living in an Asian household where we only buy things on sale, basically go straight to the clearance rack at the clothing stores, and even do things like save tons of plastic bags in the storage bin. You know what I'm talking about. I just really carried that mentality, especially throughout college when, tuition is so expensive. But since being with Sean, I've learned that sometimes I'm being overly cheap. And for example, there was a time period when my lips were really dry and regular chapstick just wasn't cutting it, but I was just like using it like very stubbornly. And then finally I was just like, you know what,
Just buy the Burt's Bees, just fix your problem.
even though being cheap can save money, but you might create inconveniences for yourself, which is probably losing more value to your life in that way, especially because time is money. And so just buy the things you need, especially if they're gonna make your life more convenient. And I think the idea is just not to think of being cheap, but to just be more purposeful in what you're buying to see if it will really add value to your life. Just get what you need, and even sometimes what you want, because happiness is part of making your life better too. What's the point of making money if you don't spend it? Just make sure it will spark joy and it's high quality. That's the kind of mindset I'm going into now when I decide whether to buy something. Okay, and that's all of my 11 lessons. It's not as satisfying as 21 lessons like in all those other YouTube videos I've seen, but I really tried to think hard to create this list over time such that this list will be helpful and hopefully you'll learn something new and different from it. It's important to reflect because then you're making the most of your past to grow your future. I'm curious to learn what you learned in this past year as well. So yeah, please share, let me know, and then you're sharing and helping the rest of the YouTube world, or all the people on this video at least, for them to potentially live a better 2022 as well. Last note is that, YouTubers, they each have their own sort of thing they do that's memorable. I don't know what mine is yet, but something I thought of, kind of taking a leaf out of Niga Higa's book, if you've seen him, but is at the end, I'll be like, lesson 3, because it's a heart. That's kind of cringy, I think, but we can make it into a thing. Let me know what you think, or I'll just scratch it completely, and it's probably better to have nothing than to have something that cringy. But anyway, I'll see you next time, and happy 2022.